For 9 years of my life, I worked at Lubbock, Texas Airport with Southwest Airlines. And apart from the fact that it was working in customer service at an airline was extremely stressful, nevertheless, we had so much fun. I mean, when you get the crazy scenarios that happen at an airport, it's just endless entertainment and endless fun. One of the scenarios that would happen actually quite often was Southwest Airlines. If you've flown them, they're really the only airline that has a true through flight. And by through flight, it means that you start here and your destination is here, but you might stop somewhere for about 30 minutes, drop some people off, pick some people up, and you stay on the plane and you go. Well, since Southwest is really the only airline that does that, it creates a little bit of confusion. And so sometimes people will inadvertently get off the airplane. And so they do a through count, and they count the throughs, and then they have to go out and say, you're here. And it's understandable, except in Lubbock, Texas, we had a through flight that went from Dallas to Lubbock to Las Vegas because of the Wright Amendment, the federal law prohibiting nonstop flights from Dallas to Love. And so people are planning this trip to Vegas. They're thinking about the buffets, they're thinking about the lights and the mirage and the volcanoes and all the exciting things they're going to do there, and circus with the kids, and they've got all this, and they've got all these things planned. They're going to stay at the pyramid one, the Luxor, yeah, that's where my son likes to stay. And so, they've got all this, and they've been planning this for months, and so they board the flight in Dallas, and they're on their way, and of course nobody listens to the announcements, so that's understandable, even though they say about 327 times, we're landing in Lubbock, Texas. Every once in a while, on that through flight, people would get off. This is what Lubbock looks like, and this is right outside the airport. And then when you get and land and pull up to the gate, you have the airport on the left and you have that on the right, and people would get off the plane, seeing that, would walk through the airport down the glass, which is facing that, and would go out to the baggage claim and begin to look for their luggage, which of course doesn't show up. It didn't happen a whole lot, but it happened enough to be fun. And the girls would call me and they'd say, Aaron, we got a through passenger that got off Lubbock going to that, right? And so I would get on the PA and I'd make an all-in-airport announcement. I'd say, those of you just coming in on Flight 783 from Dallas, welcome to Lubbock, Texas. As you look out the window, you'll notice the infinite farmland and agriculture. You'll notice there's no mountains. You'll notice there's no trees. You'll notice there's no skyscrapers. You'll notice there's no Las Vegas Strip. If you are looking for the Las Vegas Strip, you might want to get back to the aircraft that's about to leave. Otherwise, it's about a 900-mile walk. And sure enough, somebody would come running up to the counter and they'd say, oh, that's my plane, and stop, I got to get back on there. And so we would try to make sure that we got them back on. And as silly as that is, to imagine somebody getting off there, thinking they are there, I understand it. Because people want to be done. People want to be at their destination. When they board an aircraft, they want to be able to say, we're here. We're finished. When you begin a road trip across the country, as I did last week, from the moment I left Kirchville's house on Sunday after Point Man, the thing at the forefront of my mind was, what? Are we there yet? Have we crossed the finish line? You imagine in a race. In a race, what's the only thing you think about? You're thinking about the checkered flag. You're thinking about, have we crossed the finish line? Are we done yet? Are we there yet? It is all we think about. It is all that we long for, because there are very few things in life that are important to us, that we value as much as beginning a project, beginning a task, setting a goal, and the beauty of being able to reach that goal and say, I'm finished. I'm done. We've crossed the finish line. The problem is, if you quit before you reach the finish line, if you get off before you reach the destination, you're going to end up in Lubbock instead of Las Vegas. Now, granted, there's some stuff to do in Lubbock. I mean, you got the Buddy Holly Museum, so you can make the best of it. But if your goal is this destination and you stop before you get there, if you stop before you reach the finish line and see the checkered flag, you lose. You don't win. And yet this is our nature. We want to be done, and sometimes we want to be done so badly that we're willing to give up and quit before we reach the finish line. And this tendency that we have as human beings, I believe, is one of the greatest obstacles of the kingdom. This tendency, this human nature that we have to want to be finished is one of the greatest obstacles that we have as a church. Because we want to be reformed, past tense. We want to be restored, past tense. We want to be done. We want to be able to say, aha, we made it. We're, as a church, where we want to be. Boom, we've crossed the finish line. We're done. But as the elders highlighted in that video, the labor of restoration lives on. The vision of discovery at Canyon lives on. You think about Acts chapter 2. What's the very first words used to describe the first century church as it began? And they what? Continued steadfastly. They continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine, in prayer, in fellowship, in the breaking of bread. They continued. They persevered. You would think that after watching 3,000 people get baptized, that you'd say, cool, this is awesome. This is great. We're done. We made it. If we baptized 3,000 people, we'd be tempted to say that, would we not? But they continued steadfastly. Look at Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4, we've been looking at this theme of unity. We've been looking at this theme of one being one. And of course, Ephesians 4 is a text we began with in this idea. And Ephesians 4 begins with the idea of unity, that we're to be united in action, we're to be united in thought. But then verse 7, he has a big but, and he says, but to each one of us. And he says, each one of us are diverse. And so we're to be unified, and yet we're to be diverse. And then verse 11, he says, and he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we should no longer be children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness by which they lie in wait to deceive, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. Talk about a mouthful of profound church wisdom Paul gives there. But look at verse 13. How long? How long is this beautiful picture that Paul paints of the church? How long is this purpose? How long is this vision? How long is this continuing? How long is this race? Where is the destination? Where is the finish line of what we're doing here? He says, till we all come to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. If that's the finish line, how are we doing? Are we there yet? Just nod your head no. Well, we got a ways to go? Yeah. That's the finish line. And that, when we reach that point, is when we can say, we've done. The only time before that, 2 Timothy 4, that we can say we're done is where Paul was able to say he's done. And I share this as we close simply because that can be a pretty depressing thought, can it not? Guess what? The finish line is 17 miles ahead. Keep running. But listen to what Paul says. 2 Timothy 4:6, for I am already being poured out as a drink offering, the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. That's quite a finish line, is it not? That's the finish line that awaits us. And in the meantime, until we make that finish line, we keep running, we keep seeking, we keep pursuing our vision and our purpose, and we don't give up until we're done.